right?
The story behind, like my story or the actual story?
Yeah, your story. Yeah,
Yeah.
But again, a lot of people, particularly with the arts, go. Again, one of my favorite authors is talking about, writers saying that they need inspiration before they can write. And he said, no, you just write. You just write.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all.
I heard a guy.
This is why the Beatle thing was so inspiring to me, is because, again, they just kept on it and on it and on it and on it and on it. And they were having fun too. They were smoking dope and, stuff. But they just kept on it, right? And it was really so inspiring to see. I mean, they would begin with one line for a song, right? And then they'd work it and build and build and build and build, but always back on it. And it wasn't about, you could see it's not about inspiration. And that's why in the movie there's so many scenes of them making fun of the songs, like Paul McCartney singing "Let It Be" as a goof.
Yeah, just having fun with it. Yeah, it was probably the same guy that you're referencing, but this guy I just heard recently, he was talking about kind of the muse with writing, like how you can find a muse. And he said he did believe in it, but every day he would sit down and write. And it didn't matter if he found it or not, that he had to put in that work every day just as a kind of a regimen. I hate to say the word, but then he said if he did that.
Let's just go into this. Why would you hate to say that word regimen? I do regimen left, right, and center. I love regimen. I love it, man. Right?
Just because because I just heard David talking. It was just because me and David's conversation.
David's different. No. I mean, David takes regimen to a whole different level, man.
Yeah.
And this is because, again, of his upbringing and the expectation of this very, very, very harsh. I mean, very harsh.
Yeah.
There's a story he tells that they had a pet lamb. And they named the lamb, and then at Thanksgiving, they serve the Thanksgiving meal, and they get done, and his mom says to him, let's say they called the lamb Henry, yeah?
Yeah.
So she goes, well, how did Henry taste?
It's terrible. It's so terrible. Yeah, I feel terrible for him.
Yeah, so, I mean, David, even though David came up in relative affluence, it was horrible. I mean, my childhood was nothing to write home about, right? But, David had a really, really, really bad upbringing. I mean, dude, you had a hard upbringing too, but David leaves both of us in the dust. I mean, really,
I've heard little bits about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really awful. Holy shit, so that was where the regimen thing came in. And of course, regimen equaled then him getting love from his parents, which of course doesn't work. But, so he took it to too much of a degree. But you and I do not take it to enough of a degree because we got opinions. Yeah?
So it's like a sliding scale, and there's an extreme amount of it, and not in, and we're trying to find that balance. That's what we're trying to find, is an equilibrium, obviously.
Buddha's metaphor is, and we'll do it contemporary, which is tuning a guitar instead of a lute, right, which would be an Indian instrument. Buddha said, if you tighten a string too much, what happens?
It'll snap.
It'll snap. And if you don't tighten it enough, what will happen?
It'll just be too loose and go.
It won't make a clear sound, right? This is, again, all life have balance. This is the balance. But again, with the discipline on, particularly in artistic expression, right, you just got to, David paints every day, but he does not paint the same way that he does Qigong every day. He does Qigong as a regimen, and he does painting as an exploration. Yeah. So you're writing, that's what and again, I really prevail upon you, if you have Disney Plus, to check out and it does get a little slow. It's a little bit overdone. I think that Peter Jackson could have done it with, 2 versions instead of 3, but it really is, you do see how these guys were really maestros at their craft. They really were. Yeah. And the way they did it was just inspiring. I mean, really inspiring shit,
George R. R. Martin, he equated it to gardening. He said, I'm like a gardener. I just go in and I consistently work it every day until I finally have the garden at the end. He's like, I'm not.
George Martin, who was the fifth Beatle, is that who you're talking about?
No, George R. Martin. That's his name, right? Yeah, George R. R. Martin, the guy who lives here, who did Game of Thrones, who wrote Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Because there's a George Martin who was really the fifth Beatle.
That's funny. That is pretty ironic.
And he was older than the Beatles, but he was also classically trained and all that stuff. And really, without his influence, I don't think that there would have been Revolver and Sergeant Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour. I don't. He really, really added a lot.
Was that when it started to get a little bit more psychedelic, or
a little bit more?
Yeah, more psychedelic. Yeah, because
Revolver and Sergeant Pepper, right? They were the psychedelic albums of 1966 and 1967, and they pulled everybody along with them. They did. I mean, it was unprecedented what they did with, particularly Sergeant Pepper. It was unprecedented.
For those albums, were their albums referencing psychedelics, or were they not before that?
So quietly, but not Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Seriously.
And I know it is true that John Lennon's kid, or whoever it was, right, did do a drawing and did say it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. But of course, then the boys taking LSD went, hey, look, come on, right? It's a shoo-in, for Christ's sake. And the fact that the Beatles say, no, it was just that's to cover their asses, because back in 66 and 67, they got lots of bad press for pushing psychedelics. I mean, it was dangerous for them. It was dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays with culture, it could be pretty dangerous, but I couldn't only imagine back then, because everything was way more severe,
Well, it was much more societally, much more conservative. Yeah. There was two guys called the Smothers Brothers, and they had a TV show, right? And at one point they said, let's put a new meaning to LSD. And in the background, this huge banner came down, right? With huge, I mean, like 2-story high letters, LSD. Right? And it said, let's change it to let's save democracy. And they caught hell for that. Oh, I think their TV show got canceled because of that.
Wow. Yeah. Not very good foresight in their situation. But it shows that the culture at that time was not willing to even accept those ideas,
Yeah, there's on YouTube, there's like a 53-minute video that has newsreels in it of 1967 society's look at the hippies, and it was called the Hippie Temptation. That's what it was called.
Was that around the time of Reefer Madness and all of that?
No, Reefer Madness came out in like the late 40s, early 50s.
Okay. Yeah.
No. This was either 1966 or 1967 when it just exploded. It just exploded, man. Right? And, regular American culture just didn't know what to do.
But just in a few decades, look where we are now. And my whole generation, it's like almost ingrained in them. Some of my peers had hippie parents, who were like,
right.
They were the generation after the real hippies, but it's influenced so many people in my generation.
Again, it got all the way, first it was called a subculture, and then it got all the way to the counterculture, right? Which is how much it impacted on the society, the culture of America. And, even though the overt hippie movement went away, as it should have, because it was too nuts, man. There was no regimen to it.
Yeah.
There was no discipline.
Yeah.
And again, it was not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll for a whole bunch of hippies. It was about sex, drugs, and religion, like me.
Yeah, enlightenment, or just like finding a path, finding a truth,
And again, because we realized that, and this is why everything was reconsidered. Everything. Relationship, diet, religion, living situation, everything was reconsidered, which I think is really a good thing to do in every generation, personally.
Yeah, I think it's definitely happening right now in my generation. But like we've talked about before, is with the internet, there's an overwhelming amount of information out there. Some people get skewed to the wrong direction, but I do see a lot of the ideas that you and me have talked about kind of popping up online in conversations, and I think it's pretty awesome that you can find some really intelligent people out there, and you can find some good ideas out there. You just have to, go towards the right places. And
well, dude, I told you that for the first year I was a vegetarian. There was no other vegetarians.
yeah, that's difficult. I can't imagine.
Yeah, so this is 1968 going into 1969, right?
Yeah, wow.
Again, even my hippie friends made fun of me,
Really?
and Christ,
Yeah.
On all restaurants now have a vegetarian menu.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, on behalf of the cows, cool.
Yeah. I wonder if there's got to be large percentages that are now vegetarian, and I wonder with our massive population if it is helping or not, because we have so many people on the planet.
Right. Well, the fact is, this is still the issue: is that this one species, there's too many of us. There is, and I think this is why the Earth manifests pandemics.
Kind of herd the
pandemics
hold
are
the herd.
The planet's white blood cells.
Yeah.
I mean it. And again, there is about 1 billion too many of this species on the planet. Everybody, all the other species, left, right, and center.
And we really just manage our resources and everything horribly. We could probably sustain everything if we just managed things better, but that's a really big question to ask from society. I feel like it's going towards it.
I do think it's coming around. I really do think it's coming around. I mean, I told you years ago, probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I saw a photograph of little old ladies in Las Vegas, Nevada, with purple hairdos doing Tai Chi. It's like, see?
Yeah.
It's not part of the culture. It's
definitely
part of the culture.
Yeah, I mean, so Facebook is really pushing, they changed their name to Meta, they're pushing this whole thing, which is the metaverse, which is kind of what we're doing already right now, you and me. We are not talking physically, we're talking through the internet, and they're just pushing this where the technology for VR glasses and for augmented glasses, which is basically you put on glasses and you could see a screen that's not actually there. You can put a screen on your wall, but it's not actually there. It's just through the glasses. They're saying the technology is almost at the point where it's going to be kind of everyone uses it. They're going to try to make it like cell phones, so it's like an everyday kind of thing. So they wanted to make it so like you put on these goggles and you and me could be having a conversation on top of a mountain in the Himalayas or something.
That's cool. I think that's cool. I like that stuff.
Yeah. And so they're really pushing for that. And what people have talked about is it's going to totally destroy. I mean, not any more than any of the other technologies, but it's going to push more for the ideas of no borders, because there's not going to be a reason for borders, because there's going to be like one world. We're all going to be, more connected even than we already are.
Like his old Sting said, he wasn't a hippie. He was a punker. One world is enough for all of us. Yes.
Yeah. Seriously.
One world. Yeah. Great song, by the way. If you don't know, it's a wonderful song.
I'll check it out. But yeah, I honestly do think that we have the technology and the resources to manage this, but we just don't do that at all. And
we begin to need to be clear about this, and I don't know if we're rolling or not, right?
Yeah, we have been.
I want to talk about, because I don't want this to turn into a political thing. But the fact is, we keep saying we, and it is not we. It is a handful of people at the top, right? Yeah. Probably, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people around the planet are responsible for stalling, right, repairing the planet, and then coming up with new and better ways, yes, to do things like renewable energy. I mean, duh. I mean, if we have the capacity for renewable energy, why in the name of God wouldn't we be using it? And again, here where, I was talking to a peer the other day, and she said, "You seem a little burdened today. What's up?" And I go, "Well, I've talked to, I don't know, maybe 15 of my liberal peers, and I'm a liberal, yeah, happily, proudly, just like I'm a socialist, proudly, God damn it, yeah, yeah." And I do have solar panels. I mean, as soon as I could do it without any out of pocket money, of course I did it.
Yeah.
Of course I did it. Yes, and again, so I've talked to all of these liberal friends and even a couple of Republican, acquaintances, and not one person has taken advantage of this beautiful way to transition into renewable energy here in New Mexico.
So a couple questions is are they people that would like think in those terms where like just in the terms of, oh, I can sustain the electricity in my house through an alternative energy?
They claim to be, again, when I say liberal, what I mean is also progressive, and progressive also means being aware that there is a climate catastrophe, not a crisis, not a change, but a catastrophe, right? And again, we need to be doing whatever we can do to, again, assuage that. And the fact that now you can run your house off the star we call the sun. It's just magical.
So another question then, are these people that can afford this stuff, like without it being affordable already?
No, these are people where I teach them Qigong, and all of them are retired, traveling the world every year, right? And, hand-wringing about, how reactionary the Republicans are and how the climate crisis is real, but yet they're not doing one thing, one very viable thing, right? To change it.
So what would be their reasoning? What do you think the reasoning is for not doing it?
It's the same issue with our kind, with everything, is we have to acknowledge that we would much rather not, in general, right? That our cousins are the sloth, yeah? And if we can begin with that understanding that intrinsically, I mean, every single thing that we do, from cars to blenders that whip eggs for us instead of using a fork, all these labor-saving devices, right? It's all because we're lazy.
Yeah, we just want the easiest way to get things done.
Exactly right. So if we can acknowledge that, we can begin to work with it. Yeah, so it's irksome to have to make a telephone call to any number of the solar energy companies now, right? And to go through the process of setting it up and all the rest of it. But then, I mean, now for almost a year, my house has been, the electricity in my house anyway, right, which is the stove and the hot water heater, and the hot water heater is gas too, right? But it also has an electric component to it. It's all being generated by the star we call the sun.
Yeah, I mean it is so incredible to me that we have this massive energy source there that could produce all of the energy we ever need, and it's just right there. And I mean, it's it's spectacular. There's a Russian guy. I don't know if he's definitely not alive anymore, but I can't remember his name, but he had a system for levels of society that were much more advanced than us. But he said number one level of society was a society that took all their energy from the sun. Not all their energy, but all the energy they needed from the sun, and they were able to now travel through stars and stuff like that. And then like a level 4 society was something like it takes their energy from like black holes or something even more extreme than that. But so he like goes through these like scientifical, but we're not even close to level 1 society in those, because we can't even get our energy from the sun yet. We're still using unrenewable resources.
The sorrow is we can.
We can, definitely, and we are more.
the environmentalist scientists said a square mile, which is a lot. Square mile is a lot of area, but a square mile of solar panels could feed California, all of California, with all the energy it needs.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. My mom, she has a solar panel. It's about this big, like that big, and then we take it out to the land, and she can set it out there, and we can plug in like phones, maybe a little lamp for the nighttime and stuff, and it's incredible. It's so awesome.
Right. And it's renewable. It's just the bomb. It's like the lights I have outside that you inspired me to do with the Farolitos last Christmas. It was so beautiful that I went and got these solar panels, and in the evening, it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it looks great. Yeah.
And they're all renewable.
Yeah. It looks like a little little resort, like on Hawaii or something,
Well, yeah, it's gorgeous. Now, again, it still needs more refinement because the solar cells in the lights are still they're sometimes all of the lights don't come on, or they don't come on super bright. But the fact is, I don't care. It's these are the first steps that we need to take collectively to transition out of killing the planet.
Yeah. And there's another issue that I definitely should bring up is just that the mining for the solar cells.
Aware of that.
Yeah. It does do a lot of destruction, but like you just said, solar panels is one problem that we are learning to solve, and now that the mining for the resources is another problem that we are learning to solve, and it all just takes solving one problem, then seeing the next issue that we have to solve, and just kind of working our way up until we have something that's more manageable. And we've been doing that throughout all of society for all of our technology, so we've been doing
it throughout our history. We're a long way from living in a cave discovering fire. Shit, right? Yeah, I told you the lead guy in Cool Play. I saw an article with him. And I told you, I think last time that they stopped touring until they could rework their sound systems so that the sound systems are now working with renewable energy.
I haven't heard that, but that's cool. That's really cool.
Isn't that outstanding?
Yeah, that's awesome.
These people will influence millions of people, right? So again, the naysayers, right, are saying, well, you still take jets. And this guy was so wonderful, man. He didn't ruffle him at all. He said, look, these are stages. We begin. We're doing the best we can so far. Yeah. So we keep building, and we will, we'll work on this. But the fact is that all of this is about positive expressions that are, even if they're doing, a 3-hour concert, and they're no longer using electricity that is based on, a dam somewhere, right? With hydroelectricity, which has devastated, whole ecosystems. So again, the fact is that as yet, none of this is going to change it just like that 100%. But, there's so many people now. You keep telling me about people in your generation, right, who are doing these phenomenal things.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. Like I told you last week about, it's called Team C's. That's what it's called. I think you can look it up. But so it's this guy who's my age. He has been on YouTube for years, but so his first few years he had no viewers at all, and he would do ridiculous things like say somebody's name, like another famous person's name, for 24 hours straight. He would record himself for 24 hours straight, clicking a button every time he said the person's name, and the whole video you could watch the whole video is 24 hours of it. So he'd say like 10 million times, and just ridiculous things like that until finally he started getting some money, and right away he started doing these things where he would give the money away. He would just give all of the money away. And it just blew him up, and now he's literally the biggest YouTube star on the platform. He has over, I think like 75 million followers or something like that, an extraordinary amount. But the first one he did, Save the Trees, which every dollar people donated, he would plant a tree, and he got like $30 million and planted like 30 million trees or something. But this one, he's working with the person who I've told you about in the past, who is doing the ocean cleanup. And for every dollar you donate, you get they will do a pound of trash cleaned up from the ocean. I just want to see where they're at right now, because it's pretty cool. They meet their quota for their donations in like the first week, so they're probably way over. Save the Seas. So I'm just on the website and just seeing how much that they've put in and how much they've earned. So the Ocean Cleanup has teamed up with Team Seas to help bring attention to the problem of plastic pollution in our oceans and raise funds to help solve it. The Team Seas fundraising campaign kicked off on October 29th, 2021, and aims to reach the funding goal of $30 million by January 1st, 2020. Half of the funds will go to the Cleanup Ocean, helping us deploy and operate the interceptors, collecting 1 pound of trash for every dollar donated. Let's see. I don't see a spot that says how much they've earned, but when I saw it on YouTube, they in the first week they earned that $30 million basically. So they're now way over that, which is amazing.
Well, this is the point where, again, if people donate a buck here and a buck there, the fact is it can transform everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So this is why, again, I was a little bit forlorn that, all the liberals who I know, right, are, they're dragging their feet about doing something which is so easy and could be so impactful. So impactful. Yeah.
And that's one kind of thing that I don't even want to get into the politics too much, but the right has kind of lobbied against the left, which is that they're lazy. And and that is one thing that is kind of true, is that we can tend to be lazy in a lot of these situations, which we should not be.
Yeah. So again, the fact is that, if we're going to talk it, we got to walk it. Once again, we're back to that law. Yeah. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, man.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when there is access, please, why aren't we taking advantage of this stuff? And we will, but I'm just exhausted with again, I've told you that I've been recycling in terror for about 50 years.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted, and it does really, really sadden me deeply that people who claim to be of like mind and who care about the environment and all the rest of that stuff, just ain't doing shit.
Yeah. So like in Taos, the Earth ships were these really amazing, massive houses that were built with all sustainable, recyclable material, and they're really well constructed houses. But lately, Taos has become very rich and political, so all of them have been cleaned up, and they have rules on how you can build them, so they look presentable. And now they say yes.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So now they say that it's just a bunch of rich people who go in and buy them more for a status thing than to actually have one. Because at this point, it's not even sustainable anymore. It's more of like it's trying to be
status. It's a status. Well, and again, I don't care. Let it. Now the new thing is I have a hybrid. It's new. I'm better than everybody thinks. Fine.
Yeah, that's cool. You're great. Yeah, have it. But it is really cool to learn about the airships, because in researching it for a while, I don't have any of the money to do this, but when I build my own house up on that land up there, I've learned so many different processes that are so sustainable, eco-friendly. They have a low impact on the environment, but they also are really strong and durable and will last hundreds of years. And there's some and taking all from the ancients of Japan, the ancients of England and Europe, and the ancients from even North America, and using their strategies, and mix it with a little bit of modern stuff, like we do here in New Mexico with Adobe. But if you put all these ideas together, you can make some really incredible houses that are sustainable and strong and durable. And so it's really cool, and I really want to do that. And just even there's these whole faction of people who go and collect different glass bottles from recycling or whatever, and they're trying to find like specific types. Like the blue glass is the best because it just looks the prettiest, or it's hardest to make or whatever. But so they collect thousands of bottles and make giant bottle walls, and
Right.
glass bottle walls, and it's easy, and it's you're recycling and it's really
And affordable
durable.
is the thing. It's yeah, yeah. And again, this is another thing that started back in my day with
Yeah,
people doing that kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah. Now, there was a place in upstate New York called the Church, and a bunch of artists lived in it, right? And they had a company called Us Co.
Yeah.
Right? And they did light shows. They were one of the first light show people. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
They went up through the top of the church and they set up this thing where uh, um, uh, um, this mirror would turn. It wasn't yet solar energy, right? But they did this thing where it was mechanized so that this mirror moved with the sun, right? And it lit the whole bottom floor of the church,
All
right?
day long,
All
basically.
day long. All day
Yeah.
long. Yeah?
That's so cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Rays of light coming
Yeah.
down, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
efficient, super efficient, and beautiful. And it is true of the Earthship homes that they can be made exquisitely beautiful.
Yeah,
Just
they do this amazing thing in Earthship homes, which they also do in geodesic homes,
right,
and they
right.
do it in a lot of different designs. But in the Earthship, it's a more condensed version, which is the side that's always facing the sun, so it's usually facing south.
South,
The
right.
the where the sun kind of goes over, the I guess pointing. It's not necessarily at the sunset or the sunrise, but right in the middle of
Oh,
the
right,
sun's
right,
trajectory.
right, right.
Yeah.
It's called
And
southern exposure.
yeah, yeah. And so they have a room in between the house and the outside that is basically just a greenhouse. And
Right.
then there'll be slots all above the doors into the house, and they can regulate the temperature of the house because there's this pocket of air in this room between them, that kind of warms up with the sunlight.
No, it
And,
does
and
warm up. It
yeah,
warms up, and it can warm up like excessively.
and so it's all just like a little bit of ingenuity to insulate your house just by using the earth and directions and air and sun and stuff like that, and like
And this stuff is imperative to talk about, particularly in this kind of a context, this format, social media, because there's so many young people. I'm working with this 15-year-old now, and he told me about a kind of a recurrent dream that he has, which is basically about the end of the world.
that's
You
crazy
know,
because yeah, I've had many recurring dreams about
me
the end of the
too,
world.
me too, in
Yeah.
lifetime. No shit, me too. Yeah, no shit.
Does
Yeah.
his revolve around water or something else?
No, his is much more abstract. It's about stars going into the sun and then the sun exploding.
Wow, yeah, because
Right?
mine is the world floods, and then we're like trying to get to like the highest peaks and stuff like that.
Well, because of my time coming up with the bomb, right, with thermonuclear destruction, my dreams were always about right out of Terminator, where the bombs go off and then that thing
Yeah,
comes, right, and everybody turns into skeletons,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That was my end of the world dream. But the fact is, um, this is why it is imperative that, particularly with social media, because it's used so much, that this thing with the guys who were cleaning up the plastics, those two surfer dudes who went to Indonesia and now have that business where if you donate, you get a bracelet that's made out of the plastics that they've taken off the beaches
Yeah.
in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Which is like so superior, so wonderful. Yeah, and they just wanted to surf.
Yeah, no,
They just
seriously. Yeah.
the waves were so good, and then they went, oh shit, and then they got to work.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful, just
A short
huh?
little story is when we were on Cambodia, we were on this first little tiny island, didn't even have electricity, but it had a couple different resorts, is what they would kind of be called, where, they had enough amenities for like 30 people to stay each one, and it was on a small island. and all the electricity, they had it during the day, but at nighttime all electricity would go off. And so the first night I get there, I'm looking at the beach and there's trash. There's a good amount of trash on the beach. And I'm like, I wonder how hard it'd be for all of us to clean this up. And then that night they had different games and stuff that they would do for everybody. And then at one point they're like, from this hour to this hour, we're going to do trash cleanup. And then whoever can bring the bags with the most amount of trash get like 10 free beers or whatever, you know? And so me and these group of kids that we're with, I was pretty drunk and high and all having a great time at this point. So I just ran back and forth and cleaned up so much trash that they called it, and I didn't even realize that they called it. I just kept cleaning up trash, and then we were playing frisbee, and like, you know, so like we were playing frisbee and cleaning up trash, and like we didn't even realize that they had called it and ended it, but we just kept doing it for hours. But like we cleaned it up, and then the next day it was full again. So you could see how it's an endless type of, you know, you have to just
not endless. That's the point. It's not endless. It is closed-ended, right? At a certain point, there won't be, right? And again, you know, just like Frank Herbert said, plastic is an astonishing substance. It's just that we have not refined it enough yet, right? Yeah. So the bottles last for a couple of 100 years, right? Whereas that could be used for building material.
Yeah.
Right? Beautifully, right? But the bottles biodegrade in 6 months, right? And then we can use it. Fine, it's fine. But, and again, none of this is about malice. It is about laziness. It is about laziness, right? Yeah, but it's not about malice. This is not people purposely creating plastic to fuck up the oceans, right? You know, it's lazy that people do not, again, you know, use the proper place to put the plastic so that the oceans aren't filled, right? And again, I do think through social media and stuff like that, and awareness and caring, and the surfer dudes, and you know, right, that people are becoming more and more and more conscious about this, right, which is really good. But I do think that it is imperative to, you know, to really remind, you know, to make statements of the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people who are mostly in your generation, right, who are actively involved now in, you know, I mean, you know, I love the rock groups from my time. Not one of them was trying to work out so that their speakers would be fueled by the sun. Not one of them. I mean, I think that is so cool. I was so moved by that. And again, the humility of this guy, you know, saying, you know, we're doing the best we can. And he was not pissed. He was not affronted. He just said, I hear you. I get it. You know, that's next step. Yeah. Right. Maybe want to listen to their music. I don't know their music.
So I don't know if Elon Musk can totally get away with this, because there's also some bad stuff with the mining for his materials, but he wanted to go to fully Bitcoin, to not fully, but he wanted to allow people to pay for his vehicles and stuff with Bitcoin. So he said, I'm doing it. He allowed it to happen, and then everyone started lambasting him, telling him how bad the mining for Bitcoin, it costs a lot of resources, and it's actually really unsustainable right now. And he was like, okay, I'm canceling that. He's like, I learned that it's actually really bad for the environment, and until we can find a way to make the mining more sustainable, I'm not going to allow people pay for it. So he like started
make the mining more sustainable as opposed to make the mining more profitable, and that's what's got to shift. And here is where, once again, you know, I'm sorry about the people who say that democracy and free trade, which is a fancy word for capitalism, go hand in hand. They do not. They are in opposition to each other. Socialism and democracy go hand in hand. Democracy is based on government by the people, for the people, right? Socialism is about everybody getting at least the basics taken care of. Yes? Right? So that goes hand in hand. And that does not reinforce blind greed, where the bottom line is about sustainability, not about profit. Right? And we have to grow into this as a world. We have to.
And like you're saying, with everything that you were just saying, it's going to be very hard for us. We're doing it, but it's going to be very hard for us to do that with our capitalist society, where everyone's so focused on.
See that mentality, and the mentality is profit-based. The mentality is me before we, right? And that in and of itself, I'm sorry, is infamous. It's not okay. It's not okay. Again, American culture says that the apex of American culture is self-actualization. And
I don't
again,
even know what that means, to be honest.
well, that
We've talked
means
about it a little bit before, but it's a very kind of amorphous idea
it
in my.
is amorphous. And it basically comes out of Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? Which again, the apex of that, the foundational need is food, clothing, shelter, and medicine, like the Buddhists say, the four necessities, right?
Right.
And then you go up and up and up to, things like romantic love or, acknowledgement by your peers, all the way up to the apex is self-actualization. And once again, that is so, I'm sorry, that is based on this culture where the highest expression should be self-realization, not actualization. Again, you can be corrupt as hell and be self-actualized,
Yeah,
but
right.
on being self-realized, then what you realize in that exploration, again, is that like yourself, all beings need the four essentials: food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. All beings need that. All beings, right? So again, then the focus is not on profit anymore, it's on efficacy, you see, right? Which is much, much, much more to the point.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Musk is doing this. And I do understand, I do know, I've seen photographs of those horrible places in Africa where they are getting these components which look just like coal mines, right, that have been going on for 1,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are horrific to
Horrific, yeah.
the.
And so, as a culture, we are shifting our priorities to something that is a little bit more sustainable. But that's kind of what we're talking about right now. Is that that's what we really need to do is change our priorities and look at the bigger picture and which is coming, especially with internet. We know now that it's a one world population, and so that in order to, make any effect, we have to think about that as one unit rather than little, units of work, individually, because that's not how it works anymore,
You see, we're now in a situation just like with COVID, right? Where, it put us in a situation where we had to kind of take care of each other.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. Then we go back to the metaphor of the railway station in the middle of a snowstorm that we're all together in overnight. By the way, if you don't know One World, and that's what it's called by the Police, it's really a good song.
I'm sure I've heard of it, but I'll check it out. What was I gonna say? We were just talking about the train station. What did we say right before the train station? That I totally spaced it.
Again, with COVID, that we begin to
Oh yeah,
help
I
each other.
remember. So another thing that showed me, at least, is how quickly things can start to rejuvenate on the planet if we just take a step back. There was that documentary about all of the animals coming out and stuff, but there was a place in India, I believe, where the smog cleared up, and then all of a sudden they see the Himalaya mountains towering over them. They had never seen them before.
Indeed, and that happened, all around the mulberry bush. Now people are starting to talk about, and there are a couple of countries who've done it already. That it's something like midnight or something like that. They turn off all the lights that are used for advertising.
Yeah.
Right? They just turn them off.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, duh.
Yeah. Right.
Duh.
Yeah. Seriously.
Phenomenal amounts of energy, just phenomenal amounts of energy. Yeah. And this kind of thing will become the norm, and that's fine. God Almighty, it's fine. Now, boy, did we get off on.
Yeah, we got off on a tangent there, but I think that's definitely important. Kind of, in the sphere of political things to talk about. That's some of the most important stuff that that's happening right now.
Really, what we were talking about is not so much political as environmental. Let's be clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am sorrowed by anybody who's not taking advantage, you're not in a situation where you can do that because you rent, right? But
The apartment complex.
right? Hi, everybody I know who, owns a home, almost everybody I know doesn't own the home. They pay a mortgage, but the fact is, this can be done just like that.
I mean, yeah, and I haven't walked my talk yet, but me and my mom, we bought this piece of land, and so I've done the research, and when I have the opportunity to build a house, it's going to be very sustainable, solar panels and all of the good. Yep.
Which is cool too. I
Yep.
mean, it's so cool.
It's
just
awesome.
cool. Right.
And when you look into it, it's actually more affordable too, so it just makes sense,
Well, that's why it's stalled.
Yeah.
That's why it's stalled, because we're still dealing with an economy that is profit-based instead of efficiency-based. And this is the difference, sorry gang, between capitalism and socialism. Sorry, but it's true. It is true. Yeah. And again, all island dwellers understand socialist mentality. All of them. All of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Now we have this one island called planet Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That song says, because we're all in the same big boat. One world is enough for all of us. Yes, it's a great song.
No, it's well said. I think that my generation is at least to a degree really understands that and is making the steps, and so I'm seeing a lot of change for the better.
Right. And it's very heartening, right? And the potential for this turning into something magnificent, not just sustainable, but magnificent. You understand? Where, the fact is, it really, when I was young, there was no idea that you would go to Africa to go on safari to take photographs.
Yeah. It was just hunting.
It was unheard of. You go to Africa to go on safari to kill a big game, So it has changed so amazingly over the course of me going from a young man to an old man in so many astonishingly good ways, like even majestic ways. Where we do begin, like that wonderful biologist gal who said, this is now like enough years ago, so it's already happened, but she was saying that within 5 years in this documentary about 10 years ago, right, maybe 8 years ago, that within 5 years we will be able to talk to dolphins. And this is not because dolphins are learning English, it's because human beings are learning dolphin.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's so cool.
I mean, so cool. They've made a breakthrough on this dog speech, and it's skewed because they're having the dog speak English, human language, but it's working. They have a breakthrough, and they're having full conversations with these dogs. So they've all come out in the past year and said, "Oh, cognition for dogs is a lot more advanced than we thought it was." Yeah, seriously.
Yes, it's this is not just dogs, this is elephants, this is birds, this is all the other species. Yes. Now, they cannot apparently cognate over things like their place in eternity, which is specific to our species. Yes. But as far as sentient, right? I and other, they all have that. They all have that. And just watching Big Boy last night with all of us, right? I mean, it was clear that he is fully sentient. He realizes that he is one being and there are other beings, right? And again, it was delightful to have him in Qigong class last night.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. And he seems very calm, a lot more calm, a lot more open and receptive. And so that's a good sign right there.
And you're right. He is looking very healthy, isn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does, definitely.
Yeah. Well,
it's so funny. My little cat, she gets up on this couch, and then she goes to the doorknob, and she tries to open the doorknob when she wants to get out. She's trying to turn the doorknob, and she sees us. She knows that's how we get out. Right.
And there's nothing in nature that does that.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got accordion doors upstairs in my closet. And Big Boy figured out how to open that accordion door. Where again, it's not that when you open it, it's the hinge part that comes out first. Not
pull it.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like, damn, dude, I just wish you'd figure out how to close them after you're done.
Right. Seriously.
All right.
That's good.
Love to you.
All right, love to you. I'll see you next week.
Hi.
Can I send you? I'm gonna send you the video really fast, just through this Twitter, through the Skype chat. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And it's just the Team C's video.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. I'll see you next week.
All right, cool.
All right,
check out that song if you can. I know it's on YouTube.
What's it called?
It's called One World by The Police.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay, man, cool.
All right, bye.